My guest on this episode is Jason Hoschouer, a fellow deputy sheriff, a fellow beer aficionado, a fellow podcaster, a fellow writer, a man after many of my own hearts. The one thing I don't get about him is his enjoyment of being a traffic cop. But we'll get to that. Stay with us for a fun episode. You get to be a fly on the wall where two veteran officers talk about getting promoted, trying to promote, the challenges of being in a command position, and the challenges of this career and how to navigate them safely and wisely. So stick with us.
You are a warrior.
321 status.
What kind of vehicle is it?
You are the very best your nation has to offer.
911.
Multiple shots fired.
They're asking you to lead.
5. We need a Bearcat.
It's up to us.
So 133. I need somebody that's got a visual on where the shooter is.
You must be sound in mind, body, and spirit.
42, where's the officer down? I have a rescue helicopter that wants to land and help.
This is the podcast that will make you the one.
Copy running eastbound.
The one that will bring everyone back.
Trouble, we have shots fired. Give me back up now.
Because no one else is coming.
We're going to have an officer shot. 100 block of East Street.
Suspect is down.
This is the Squad Room.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of The Squad Room. I'm your host, Garrett Tesla, and this is the podcast. What is wrong with my voice? Excuse me. This is the podcast that helps you navigate the challenging terrain of our demanding careers as law enforcement professionals. I'm an active duty sergeant for a sheriff's office in Southern California, and I'm here to help you learn tactics and strategies for taking care of yourself, your family, and your community. If this is your first time listening to the show, thanks for stopping by to check us out. And I encourage you to do two things. First is, if you like this episode today, don't forget to subscribe to the show on the player of your choice. But also, second, go back and check out some of our other amazing guests. We have many of them, from Tony Horton, creator of P90X on episode 66, or Scott McGee of the Sisu Way podcast way back on episode 16, Kelly Starrett of Mobility Wad on episode 81, Ryan Mickler of Order of Man on episode 67, etc., etc., etc. Man, a lot of good guests on this show. I'm very proud, you can tell. Well, I've also had a lot of coffee this morning, which is appropriate for my guest today, who is a man after my own heart in many ways. We have many of the shared interests. I'll get to him in just a second. But I also want to thank some of the sponsors of today. Not plural sponsors, but one sponsor in particular. And that's ProForce. Now, a couple years ago, I was looking for a new duty gun to replace my aging HK. My agency was taking a long time to close that deal on the department purchases, so I decided to go out and purchase my own Glock G17. I shopped around and found out about ProForce and their really kind of ridiculous prices on firearms and accessories, and then really everything else that you need to get out on the street. Not just firearms from Glock, but all the major manufacturers: SIG, Smith & Wesson, Ruger, Colt, HK, etc., 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 all the Safariland stuff, everything. Now, if you're a cop anywhere in Los Angeles, Orange County, or even northern San Diego, you already know about ProForce and the amazing deals they have at their store in Brea. But what you might also think about them is this reputation for a long wait time. Well, that's gone. They have appointment systems now, so getting a firearm couldn't be faster. They have the retail location in Orange County and Brea, and also one in Prescott, Arizona. So if you're near either of them, make sure you stop by and see their selection. And what's cool is, for people who visit the store, if you go in and tell them the secret password, the Squad Room, you'll get 20% off a TLR1 pistol light. That's the same pistol light that I use on my P320. It's a great light, and you'll get 20% off, which is no joke because those things are expensive. 20% off that is pretty serious. So check them out, or if you're outside the area, check out proforceonline.com, and of course, make sure you let them know that you heard about them on the Squad Room. All right, a couple things, a couple housekeeping things. At the end of this episode, I'm going to tell you about how you can support the show without spending a dime of your own money, or I should say a dime more than you normally spend. But sometimes where we spend our money or how we spend it is important, and you can support the show, help keep the lights on, help keep this mic hot by doing things like shopping through Amazon and shopping through our link. You can go to thesquadroom.net/support to see all the ways that you can support the show that don't require like a donation, although we have that too. My guest today, a man who's been on the show, repeat guest. I should have mentioned him in my previous episode comments. Jason Hoschouer, better known as Motorcop. Jason is making his second appearance. The first time we talked about finances. And it's actually the only episode I've had on the topic, and it's an important one. So I don't know why I haven't brought him back on to talk in deeper about it, because he's a great guest. He's very engaging. But Jason is many things. One of those is a cop. Second of those is Motorcop. That's the part I don't get. Because those motorcycles are, that's just stupid. I'm joking, people. I don't like riding motorcycles or wearing those funny boots or writing tickets. Anyway, Jason he's a financial advisor as well. He specializes in helping first responders get their finances in order. He's a podcaster. He had one of the only other cop or first responder podcasts out there when I started, a show called The Crossover Show, and his co-host on that show, and him, again, too much coffee. They have started a new show called What's Your Emergency? It's a great show. It covers a lot of different topics, not just about law enforcement, but stuff in the other first responder professions and some of the things that even civilians need to know. So you can check them out there. Jason is also a fan of IPAs, as myself, as I am as well. A man of any beverage, really, coffee, I think. So we have a lot in common. We both write. He's a blogger too. He's been around the block for a long time. And you can go to thesquadroom.net and check out the show notes for links to some of his stuff. And of course, you can go to WYE Radio. That's WYE as in What's Your Emergency Radio.com to check out his other show, which I've been a guest on, and it's fantastic. So anyway, here we are with Jason. We talk about a lot of stuff. It's kind of just like two cops sitting there having a conversation, talking about careers, how to navigate them, how to deal with family. We talk about beer, the decision to promote, what that's like, and what we think needs to be part of that process. Looking at retirement, how to plan those things, etc. So I had a great time talking with him. I always do. He's been a huge supporter of everything we've done here. So without further ado, here we are with Jason Hoschouer. Jason, welcome back to the show.
Well, thank you, sir.
It's all the way back to episode 37 when you were on before, under your, I think we actually used your real name, but your
might have
your alias, like much like a Superman or a or any other superhero. You're often known to people better as Motorcop.
My moniker.
Your moniker.
Yeah, I just need a cowl.
Well,
I've become much less concerned with anonymity the closer to retirement I get.
Right, yeah. No, that makes sense. And like any good superhero, you always have good hair, so as you do today.
Well,
so.
That's true.
Always jealous of a good hair day that you have. Anyway, yeah, so you're often known as Motorcop. For people who haven't gone back to listen to episode 37, that's about financial health and how it's important in law enforcement to, think about your budgets and managing your budgets even at the beginning of your career, but how we do those things as we go. And you helped me and my wife even work through some budget stuff because I have an aversion to numbers that is probably better than most people. In the sense that I hate numbers. I hate talking about it. We recently even went through some more formal financial planning, and the planner could see my eyes gloss over when he started talking in with dollar signs and commas.
Oh yeah.
Tough stuff.
It's not exciting.
So anyway, but that was your expertise in episode 37. But you have many irons and many fires, and
true story.
Yeah, and so people might recognize you also from you were one of the original police podcasts out there with your show, The Crossover Show, which included your buddy, the Happy Medic, and it was a
yep.
I put two and two together in crossover because it's police and fire.
Yeah, that a boy. Good for you.
But it was one of the first ones out there that I was listening to when I decided to start the squad room. And anyway, we've kept in touch for quite some time. You've always been very helpful, very quick to pick up the phone when I had a question. And so I wanted to have you back on to talk about some of the new stuff that you're doing and some of the your new projects. You've got a brand new podcast that we should talk about. But first off, give everyone a sense of why the moniker, the nickname, the superhero origin story of Motorcop, where that came from.
It started in 2008, which really dates me because I had been on the motor for a couple of years. So I started on the bike in 06. And a couple of years into my gig, my attitude was constantly negative because as soon as my boot hits the ground on a car stop, somebody's getting a ticket. I'm going to make somebody mad. There's going to be, much wailing and gnashing of teeth. And it was just that constant negativity just slamming me that I just had this terrible attitude. And I thought, I got to do something about that. So I figured I'm going to start a journal. I'm going to start an online, what were they called? Weblogs, which blog I think is still one of the stupidest words in the English language. But I came home and started writing. And I thought, my mom will read it. My dad will read it. Maybe the wife. And that's probably going to be it. Well, much to my surprise, after consistent writing for a few weeks, I looked at my stats and I was hitting literally all over the world. And that just freaked me out because I was real nervous. There were no rules back in the day. There were no rules no policies. There was, hey, if people find out what you're talking about, you're going to get into trouble.
Yeah.
And I thought, uh-oh. And, of course, I didn't stop because maybe I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer. But it was really cathartic for me. And my attitude made a 180. Because instead of jamming somebody up on a traffic stop, saying something inappropriate, being rude to them, whatever, I would just think to myself, well, I'm just going to, flame you on the internet later and I'll feel much better. And you'll never know about it because I'm going to change the stop. I'm going to change the sex. I'd say I'd stop a man instead of a woman or whatever. And it became so therapeutic. And then fast forward a couple of years, I end up bumping into this guy online, the Happy Medic. Long story short, he's my best friend now, outside of the wife, of course. And we tell people we met on the internet. And that's literally how this whole stupid thing started. And I was able to take that writing experience and ended up writing for a national police magazine, ended up writing for police1.com. And we started a podcast and get to meet and interact with folks like you and a bunch of other people we've been interviewing. And we start, instead of just kind of the shotgun approach to, well, let's just throw our voices out into the ether, we started with a plan with our new show and have been much more intentional and have seen the fruits of those labors really come around.
And so let's talk about the new show and what you have there. It's WYE radio, or what's your emergency? Explain that and explain what the concept is there.
So WYE radio, it stands for What's Your Emergency? And the impetus of that was where my buddy Justin got hired on with a different department to be a battalion chief. And he's going through the hiring process, and the powers that be over there told him, hey, we've heard your show and you should stop it because we had an explicit tag and we used it liberally. It was, we kind of have a couple of beers while we're recording and just sort of rant and rave. And it wasn't negative. It wasn't angry. It wasn't vile or rude. It wasn't swearing for swearing's sake. It was just a conversation between buddies over a beer. And it wasn't purposeful recording by any stretch of the imagination. So he calls me on his way home and is like, hey man, they don't like the crossover. And I was like, okay, well, that's actually pretty good timing because I was thinking we need to rebrand anyway. So we scrapped the crossover, launched What's Your Emergency in August of last year. And the whole purpose of it, our tagline is that we talk about emergencies on and off duty. And we really let our audience define what an emergency is. This is not, oh, my house is on fire, what do I do? Or somebody's trying to kick in my front door, what do I do? It's things like my physical health is suffering. What can I do? My financial health is suffering. My mental health. And we talk about different approaches, how to be a complete person instead of I'm a cop or I'm a firefighter. Now, listen, I'm a cop, but it's like number 8 on the list of things that I am. It is not my end all be all 24/7. It can't be. It's not healthy. It's not sustainable. People that do that, you can pick them out from 100 yards away. You line up a bunch of cops and you'll be like, that's the guy right there, Gary. Gary is he everything he wears is 5'11". All he wears is Oakley sunglasses. He constantly talks about work. He's been married and divorced 4 times. He doesn't talk to his kids. That's because that's all Gary knows. That's all Gary does. And Gary's going to die within a year and a half of retirement because he's got nothing else.
I mean, is that something you came to that you've always known, or was that something that it took you some time to realize that you need these different aspects of your personality?
It was something that I stumbled onto. I think it was because I started writing, and the better that I felt along the way, I started thinking to myself, man, this is a great exercise. And then I found Kevin Gilmartin's book, Emotional Survival for Law Enforcement.
Indeed.
And I read that after 15 years on the job. And I put the book down, and I realized, and I won't swear on your show, but I said, this is why I'm such an expletive deleted. This is why I come home and I'm angry. Mm-hmm. This is why I come home and I'm not having good conversations with my wife, because I am solely identifying myself as a cop, and I don't know how to get rid of this angst or exercise these demons that are living on my shoulder and in my head. And I had the wife read it, and she put it down, and she's like, I understand you so much better now. There was a time where I would come home and she's like, what do you want for dinner? And I literally could not care less if I put effort into it. Right. Just put something warm in front of me. I don't care. And she read the book rather, and she's like, I'm going to stop asking you that question, because now I understand. Mm-hmm. And it was a real transition in our relationship. And I found it to be incredibly beneficial. And Gilmartin is actually on the short list of people we want to have on the show, and we're reaching out to him to bring his book to more people. But to be honest with you, I had the thought, everybody in the academy should read this, and I thought, well, would they get it? I mean, you've read the book, right?
Oh yeah. I've read the book several times. I've been to his seminar. Again, just like you, have tried to get him on the show. He's an extremely busy guy. He spends like half the year in Australia and then the rest of the year kind of traveling.
Yeah.
And so I'm all in, and I give that book to every rookie on my squad. When I was on patrol, everyone who came out of the academy got that book, and I gave it to everybody. If I moved squads or if I moved stations, which was frequent, I would give that book to everybody on that squad. I've had people tell me that book saved their marriage. I've had people tell me that book saved their life.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I can't overestimate or overstate the importance of the stuff in that book. I think it's good to read it the first thing out of the academy, so that as these things come up, you can see the red flags. Because I was very similar. I read it and thought, and I actually went to the class thinking, oh well, I'll go so that I can help my people, right? I was like, that's not me, but I'll go for. I don't need help, right? And Kevin is. We talk about explicit tags. If Kevin comes on your show or mine, there will be an explicit tag to it, because he's an ex-cop and he talks like one. And he's for the listeners who aren't familiar with him. There's two things that cops deal with that makes our lives hell and makes us the way we are, right? It's the bullshit and the assholes.
Yeah.
If it weren't for the bullshit caused by the assholes, this job would be great. That's his whole premise, right? And of course, the assholes could be everybody out on the street, or your admin and command staff, et cetera, et cetera. So that's just a very brief explanation of him, but
succinctly put, sir.
Right, but that's the way he phrases it. Those are the words he uses.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's legit.
Yes, and so I wish I knew. I wish I knew those red flags earlier, because, like I said, I would have gone to that course and said, nah, that's not me. But I'm there for my people. And as I went through that, and then as I went through the book, I went, oh, right, yeah, okay. I did a lot. I did a lot of those used-tos, that he talks about. You used to go fishing. You used to go mountain biking. You used to have an active, social life. And slowly, especially as you get older and you have kids and things get in the way there, those things fall away, and the only thing left is that identity of being the cop. And what I didn't really understand at the time is that that's also many people's only identity for you. My neighbors, many of my neighbors, know me only as the cop. Right?
Yeah.
They don't know me as the father or the guy who hates doing the yard work or any of the other things they may see about me or that they don't know about me. They know that I am the cop. And so to them, I am a cop. And so we often, I think, take on that extra burden as well, that we got to learn how to kind of off-gas that and deal with that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. You're absolutely right. It can be hard because society, and I'm using air quotes on a radio show, society at large wants to put labels on you, right? And you get one guy in Paducah. Sorry, Paducah. I know you're huge in Paducah, but you get
Is that
one
actually
cop
a city?
I think so. I think it's in
all right.
Kentucky, honest to God. I think there's one cop in Paducah that'll do something real dumb, and now you're that guy, right? Because you happen to wear a badge and a gun, and that can be hard to deal with too. It really can. So, my wife is starting a podcast, and she's a professional organizer, and she introduced me to her audience. Not to be on the show, but just kind of in her origin show. She said, my husband is a content creator with an entrepreneurial spirit that just happens to be a police officer. I was like, man, that's genius. I love that because I'm absolutely, I mean, I've been creating content for 11 years and I'm starting to monetize it. And I thought, and I get so much joy out of that because I'm bringing things to my audience that is helping them. And if I get a few bucks out of it, hey, great, so much the better. But my full-time gig, my official job, if you will, is I'm a cop.
Yeah.
But it's not, that's not the first thing off of my tongue when people say, what do you do? I do lots of stuff. You got a half hour, I'll tell you all about it.
Yeah, it's funny. It's a great description your wife gave you, and I was having a discussion with my wife recently about the thing too, because obviously content creator as well. There's a lot of entrepreneurial spirit that goes into a lot of those kinds of things, and I was doing the same sort of stuff before I was in law enforcement and through college, and I was telling my kids this the other day, and there's a point to the story in a second, but in seventh grade, when I was in junior high, right, I rocked a fanny pack around the halls, and that fanny pack was filled with bubble gum and cinnamon flavored toothpicks and mints. And I'm
getting such an awesome visual right now. I want you to know that.
You should. It was awesome because me and my buddy Jeff, we went in on partners, and we would sell the gum and the mints and the toothpicks in the halls between classes, right? And we would go down to Walgreens or Rite Aid or CVS, and we'd buy those, like 5 packs of bubble gum for $1, and then we'd resell each pack for like $1. So we were making this huge profit, and we were pulling as seventh graders, we were pulling like $60, $70 a day.
Nice.
And this went on for a long time until the school finally squashed it. But we went on for several months just raking in this money. And so I've always had that entrepreneurial burn, I guess. Yeah. And so the reason I say that is I was telling my kids about this the other day, about this, because my daughter wants some things, and we're talking about, well, how do you raise the money? And my wife and I went to an event, and then I came away from that, as I usually do after any event, and go, I wonder if I could do something like that, and she just kind of shook her head at me, and I was like, look, I can't turn it off. like it's just, that's how my mind works. I'm constantly thinking about those things, thinking about creating content, trying to give this audience value. And I just can't turn it off. I can't just go play golf. We were at a golf course for Easter brunch recently, and I just looked at that as like a waste of 6 hours.
Yeah, what am I doing? I could be creating something right now.
Right, and so it's just, I think she's finally just shaking her head and given up on realizing that she's not going to be able to get me to turn it off.
No, absolutely. But it's funny. The flip side of that is, like yesterday, I intentionally scheduled time in my evening late afternoon after work. A bunch of guys went out for beers after work, so I hung out with them and came home, and I didn't do anything when I got home. I put on some music, lit a fire in our outdoor fire pit, and just hung out just to recharge a little bit. I'm still thinking, ideas are still going through my head, but if you are all go all the time, man, that can burn you out too. That's all about kind of striking that balance.
Absolutely. And you can become, as much as you identify as a cop, or the dangers of identifying as a cop, you can do that same thing with anything else, right? And
definitely.
And so, yeah, that moment to just sit and chill and recharge is key. And so, while you were sitting and charging last night, one of the other things we have in common, we're entrepreneurs, we're both cops, but we're also beer aficionados.
Oh, yes, indeed.
So I imagine you mentioned you got a couple guys went out for beers. What's the beverage of choice these days, Jason?
I was I'm on Untapped. I don't know. Are you familiar with Untapped?
I am, and I don't need another reason to drink beer. So.
Yeah, I know. The fact that they're gamifying my drinking is just it's fantastic. Yeah. The wife and I got my wife hooked on it, and we'll go to a new tap house, and we'll get a flight just so we can check into 5 different beers.
Yeah.
Like I'm waiting for the badge that says, "Hey, bro, go to a meeting." You know what I mean?
I'm way too competitive.
I did get a badge once that said, "I really hope you're doing tasters," because I had like 12 check-ins in an hour or something. Like, yeah, I am. Relax, funny. It's fine. I'm at an event. But the ones I had yesterday that I really like is the Belching Beaver Peanut Butter Milk Stout.
Mm-hmm.
Oh dear God, it's like drinking a Reese's cup. It's phenomenal. It's absolutely fantastic.
That's funny because to me that sounds absolutely disgusting.
Oh, dude, it was so good. It was so good. My big thing is that I've become a huge IPA fan. I've had over 500 different IPAs, and if I can smell it before I get it to within a foot of my face, it's going to be a good one.
Yeah.
I love the IPAs.
I'm an IPA guy too, and my wife even once was like, because you got to try everything that comes out, and something new comes out, and she's like, haven't you tried them all? How many times can you repeat the same thing or the same taste? Like, oh no, you don't understand.
I once had it from Knee Deep Brewing in Auburn.
Mm-hmm. They
had it's called Hop Deranged, and it's a quad IPA. It was 133 IBUs and 13.2% alcohol.
I've had
that thing kicked me in the face.
Yeah, that's the kind of one where you clear the schedule, you sit at home, and you give your wife the keys.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It was me, the Happy Medic, and the wife, and we had a large format, and the 3 of us just split it. So it was like 5 ounces, 6 ounces, whatever, a piece. And you'd have thought we've been drinking since noon. I mean, it was like, holy smokes, this thing is legit, but it was really good.
Did you just call a bomber a large format?
It depends where you live. I've heard bomber as well, but I've also heard up here we call it large format. Yeah.
You Bay Area people,
Yeah, don't get me started, man. T-minus how long to retirement? Yeah, I can't wait to get out of here.
So, that's something that I wanted to talk about too. You've mentioned it twice now. Retirement, the big R word. You're getting a little closer. You're a little closer than I am. But it's funny to be now on the backside of my time on. Meaning, I am closer to retirement than I am to the beginning of my career. And seeing when I started how that wasn't even a thought in my mind, right? The pension or the benefits or none of that stuff was even. I didn't care. I was just glad I was on and that they gave me a gun and a patrol car to go drive around in, right? And now you start thinking about those things and what are you going to do? And I mentioned this financial planning meeting earlier, and when we went in there, and the guy was like, well, these numbers assume that Garrett will continue to work until he's 67. Like the record
change those numbers.
Time out. The whole point of this gig is the 50 or 55, whatever you have. But for me, it's 50. The 50 age 50 retirement. And I was like, yeah. So I told him, yeah, we're gonna have to rework those numbers because this job is taken. I was about to say it's taken so much that it's worth, that I want the payback. But at the same time, I obviously should say that it's also given me almost anything and everything I've had as an adult.
Yeah.
But with retirement still impending, you've had some changes recently. I mean, you're Motorcop, but you also recently became an FTO. Yeah. And then also tested for sergeant. And I thought it'd be interesting to talk through that process and maybe share back and forth for people who are considering either testing for a promotion or testing to move into a leadership position like FTOs, because that is such an important position within any department. What that thought process was like for you and why you decided to do those two things. So let's start with FTO, because that's that's obviously, I don't want to say lower, but that's the first one people typically move to versus sergeant. So, what was how much time on before you decided you want to be an FTO?
20 years.
20 years. And so
Yeah.
obviously you got a lot of institutional knowledge and professional knowledge there. What was it about at 20 years that you decided you want to do that?
The decision kind of got made for me a little bit because I've been a motor for 13 years. And we just got new bikes at the end of last year. They're 2018 BMWs. And it was my first day, 10-8, on the new bike. Walked into the sergeant's office, and he's like, hey, just so you know, the powers that be have decided that you're done on the bike. And in 6 months. He's like, they wanted to do it like right away, and I fought for it. God bless my supervisor. Right? He's a fantastic individual. Because we just got new bikes, man. I've been a motor forever, and you're going to have me not be able to ride a new motor? Man, that's jacked up. So he went to bat for me. And I thought, I could grieve this maybe. I could pitch a fit. I could rail against the man, if you will, rage against the machine, and kind of just be a jerk about it. Or I could look at it as an opportunity. And I told my wife, and I was initially... how can I politely say, not very happy about the decision, because it was taken out of I am Motorcop, for crying out loud, right? I mean,
Right.
I've built this huge brand around being assigned to a motorcycle, and now you're taking that away from me?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that I could have taken it a whole other turn. So I'm talking to my wife, kind of venting to her, and she says, maybe this is God's way of kicking you out of your comfort zone. It's like, damn it. Thanks, honey. But she was absolutely right.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, okay, well, I'm not going to, pitch a fit about it and bitch and moan. I'm going to make this a positive. So what can I do? And not so coincidentally, I should say, they just announced that they're looking for new FTOs. And I thought, well, if this isn't a divine intervention and fortuitous, I don't know what is. So I put in for it.
Mm-hmm.
Go to the interview, and I smashed the interview. I did so well that the sergeant that did it said, I'm going to be testing for lieutenant. Can you give me some pointers about how to do an oral interview? He's like, I've been doing these interviews for years. And he said, that was the best interview I've ever had in my life. I've ever seen anybody give, which I thought was awesome. And then the sergeant's interview came up, and apparently I didn't do as well on that as I did on the FTO one, because I had landed at number 17 on the list for sergeant. But I got the FTO gig first, and I thought, when the sergeant thing comes up, because I'd already accepted that position, is it like bad form if I test for sergeant so soon after just getting FTO? And I ran it past everybody, and they're like, no, and it's not a problem at all. It's upward mobility. Now, if you had decided you were going to go to investigations, yeah, that's a problem, right? So when it came to time to think about the sergeant's exam, like I said, I got 20 years on, so I'm eligible to pull the plug if I'm one bad call away from like, nope, I'm out, because I can go whenever. I can't sustain my family on the retirement money I would get in staying in California, but if I stick around for 3 more years, then that's not going to be an issue. I mean, I would basically be giving up an extra $30,000 a year forever if I pull the plug right now. Mm-hmm. And that's insane.
Yeah.
So I thought, I do have the benefit of a lot of time on. I do have the benefit of some unique experience that I can speak back into the lives of other people and supervise and et cetera. Maybe taking the sergeant's exam would benefit not only the department, it would benefit me financially in the short term, as long as the long term, as well as the long term on top of it. So I thought, you know what? Why not? So I actually put the effort in, studied, and it landed at number 17. And I got my scores back for the oral, and it was based on a 1 to 7 scale for all these questions. And I was consistently getting 5s and 6s. I mean, just doing really, really well. And the last question, which honest to God, I thought I did the best on, it gave me a 2. I was like, God dang it. Whatever.
Yeah, well, those things are often arbitrary and
true. Yeah.
There's no perfect system I've learned in a promotion process either. But,
oh God, no.
So, I see this, or I'm curious sometimes when I talk to people who, have decided to take on some more ownership in an agency, and my own process for that, because I tested for sergeant very early, the opposite of you. I tested for sergeant after just a shade over 7 years. And that was its whole interesting process too, and had some, I'd say, constructive criticism brought at me about testing so early. But it was, to me, an obvious choice when it came up, because I felt like that's where I was called to do, and that's where my skills would be best utilized, was in a role leading a small group like that. But what is it about, other than obviously there's a financial aspect to it in retirement, but for a lot of people, they get to the sergeant level and they realize that extra $3 or $4 an hour is just not worth the headache. You know?
Yeah, I could work a shift of overtime and make the same amount of money.
Right. So there really has to be some sort of internal motivation there. And I'm curious what that is for you.
When I went through master instructor certification a couple of years ago, so I'm a post-certified master instructor, and I discovered that I really like teaching and I don't suck at it. I've been told So I rewrote the 40-hour basic collision investigations course for post. And
this is for California, just for people.
For California, yes. So when I teach and I get the evals afterwards, they're like glowing. I mean, have you been to a basic collision investigations course, I assume, at some point in your career?
I had to. Actually, it was part of my academy, but I haven't done it since then.
It's like watching paint dry. I mean, it's painfully boring.
That would be giving it a lot more credit than it deserves.
Right, exactly. And I am very passionate about traffic. I love traffic, right? That's literally my gig, is traffic stuff. Mm-hmm. And I thought, I definitely have something to offer there. And I've been operating in a quasi-supervisory role for years, mm-hmm. because if people have questions about anything related to the vehicle code or crashes, I'm the guy they come talk to. I have people in the agencies I don't work for that call me up to ask me questions, because when you come to my class, I give you my cell number and my email and say, you got questions. I mean, if it's 3 a.m, it can wait. But if you got questions, you call me and I'm happy to help. Mm-hmm. So it's that idea of giving back that I really, really enjoy. And I thought, the FTO thing is a one-on-one, which I've enjoyed. And if I can increase that exponentially to, 4, 5, 6 folks that I would be supervising, and we can kind of create this cohesive unit where we all work together to make our way to obviously going home at the end of the day, but increasing efficiency, increasing camaraderie, because I see things day in and day out where, you get a supervisor and people will avoid going to, that supervisor's shift because they're terrible at their job. And I don't want to be that guy. It's partially selfish because I like being a subject matter expert. I like talking to other people and helping them learn. And when you see in their eyes that moment where they just get it, like, man, I helped them do that. And it's personally satisfying. And that was really part of the motivation, because I love, like I said, I love teaching and seeing people conceptualize something and get it and run with it. That's a great
I love every bit of that, because the guys who I've seen and the girls who I've seen be successful, they come at it as the teacher and they want to occupy that mentor role, and I think any one of us who's had any amount of time on, when you are working for someone who approaches the supervisory role as a teacher and mentor versus the managerial and authoritarian, it is such a different work environment. And we all gravitate to the people who are going to teach us and guide us versus the people who are going to supervise us, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
The one danger I found, and I struggled with early was thinking I was taking on that teaching role and being the teacher, but I was being the micromanager on accident. And so a piece of advice for anyone who's moving into those positions is, you may have expertise and subject matter knowledge that you want to impart to your people, but there's a careful dance you have to do to let them sort of discover it on their own, or just make sure that you are guiding people and not telling them. And I was lucky enough to get a kind of a 360 review a couple years ago, and it was one of the things that came up. And they said, a lot of nice things, but they did say he has a tendency to micromanage. And it took me, and I was like,
how dare you?
The M word, that's the last thing anyone wants to be, right? Nobody wants to be known as a micromanager. And it took a lot of reflection and evaluation, and then asking some people, just kind of point blank, to realize that what I thought was well-intended and well-meaning and helpful was getting taken as being micromanager and being overbearing. Totally changed how I supervise and how I ask questions and how I guide and teach now. But that's a word of warning for anyone who is moving into a position like that. You may think you're teaching. Make sure you're teaching, not just micromanaging.
Yeah, one of the things that I've learned through going through Master Instructor and teaching classes, teaching at the academy, is just because you're the, quote, instructor, you have to leave yourself open to learn as well. Mm-hmm. It's a two-way street, man. It goes back and forth. That you're going to learn things from the people you supervise all the time if you're willing to be open to it, and that's an important quality.
Yeah, that was one of the things I think I did right. Was, as I mentioned, I came in at 7 years on, and my first squad I went to had 2 guys who were on SWAT, which is not a full-time gig for us. It's a collateral. 2 SWAT guys. A guy who'd been a detective for like 20 years before he came back out to the street, so he'd seen everything under the sun. Another guy who'd been on patrol for a long time, so he knew everything. And there was no way I was going to go into that situation and pretend like I knew everything and be right.
Yeah.
So it was a good experience and I think I navigated that well because I didn't pretend to know everything. And as a result, I empowered that squad, and I tried to do this with any squad I worked with, but empower the squad to take ownership of the things that they were experts in. And, as if I went to a squad with a guy who'd been on motors or is interested in motors and new motors or traffic, I let them handle those things because that was their expertise. And so I think we get a lot of, for supervisors, a lot of positives come from just being honest and acknowledging I don't know everything, and your people aren't going to expect that you do. Yeah.
They'll look at you in a more positive light if you are, what's it called? Human. If you're listen, I don't know everything. Hey, if somebody gets into a crash, man, I can work that up for you in my sleep. But if this other thing happens that I have zero, we're going to figure this out together. And that's going from traffic back to patrol. Being an FTO, I've told all of my trainees, listen, I don't know everything. And there's going to be some things where we're going to have to figure it out together. Mm-hmm. And that's perfectly fine. I've gotten good responses from them for it.
Absolutely. It makes you more relatable, and that idea that this job has changed so much, even from the time I started to now, it's changed so much in the last 2-3 years even. The idea that you can know everything is just it's a myth.
Yeah, that's laughable. With our agency, all you need is 1 year in patrol to become a supervisor. Really? And I have seen people with literally 13 months on the street. Yeah, okay, that's adorable. and become supervisors. And it's like, holy smokes. I mean, maybe you test well, maybe you interview well, but don't come to my crash and tell me how to work it, because that's just that you and I are going to have issues, right? So but I've also seen people that have not had a lot of patrol experience get promoted and just crush it because they are relatable, because they own the fact that, listen, I get that I don't have a lot of experience. I'm going to mold myself into the kind of supervisor. I need your guys' help and your gals' help to make me the kind of supervisor you want to work for.
Mm-hmm. Hey guys and girls, I'm going to interrupt this episode to talk a little bit more about our sponsor, ProForce. A couple years ago, I was looking online for a new duty gun to replace my aging HK. My agency was taking a long time to close the deal, so I decided to purchase my own Glock Gen 4 G17. I shopped around and found out about Proforce and their insane prices on firearms and accessories, not just from Glock, but from all the major manufacturers, including SIG, Smith & Wesson, Ruger, HK, Colt, Remington, Springfield, and many others. Now, if you're a cop anywhere in Los Angeles or Orange County or even northern San Diego, you already know about Proforce and their amazing deals that they have at their store in Brea. They are only open to first responders, fire, law enforcement, medics, etc., and they are here to serve us. When they reached out to me to talk about working together, I wanted to learn more about them, so I spent a lot of time on the phone with them because though they're known for their great customer service, I just wanted to make sure they were a right fit for this show. Well, Proforce has 2 retail locations, Orange County, California, and Prescott, Arizona. So if you're near either, make sure you stop in and see their selection. They've gotten rid of those 2 to 3 hour wait times that they kind of became famous for, and they've instituted an appointment system that makes your purchase so much faster. And they've got everything you want to go with your brand new gun, holsters, lights, sights, ammo, and more. Check out their newest deals at proforceonline.com. And in fact, if you go into the store in Brea in Orange County, and tell the clerk you heard this ad, you'll get 20% off a Streamlight TLR1 pistol light. I use the TLR1 myself, and it's an awesome light, so get 20% off yours in store. Just tell the sales associate the secret password, the Squadron. All right, back to the episode. Yeah, it takes a lot of, being a supervisor, a sergeant specifically, a patrol sergeant even more specifically, I've found to be, the greatest job I've ever had. And I'm currently riding the Pine right now on a desk job, but I truly miss being out on the street and running a squad of people like that. And so... But it's a couple different things as well. It could be a very lonely job, especially based on depending on how your department is structured. We got rid of watch lieutenants or watch commanders many years ago during the recession and never brought them back. So the sergeants became the de facto watch commander. Yeah. And for us, I'm a sheriff's office, so. That doesn't mean that you're the only sergeant on, but you're the only sergeant for 30 miles in any direction, And so the dynamic there is interesting. And if you're new to this position, it can really throw you off. You eventually get used to it, and then you kind of like it that you're out there on your own. But becoming a sergeant has been the most educational experience of my entire life. I've learned more about myself and the agency, how to lead people, how to not lead people, how to make mistakes. And I wouldn't have done any of that just by reading a good leadership book or watching a good supervisor operate,
Absolutely. It takes a lot to know that you're going to make mistakes and learn from them. It's expected. And, as long as nobody dies at your hand in a remarkably inappropriate way, you can chill out. You're gonna make mistakes, as long as they are not fatal ones. That's just called living, man. And that extends beyond the badge and the gun. That applies to your whole life. I mean, I look back at things that I thought were going to be the end all be all. Like, I completely screwed the pooch on this one. Nobody's gonna speak to me again. And, when I screw up something now, I'm like, okay, this is going to suck for a little while. But at the end of the day, in 6 months, I'm not going to remember this happened.
Yeah.
You got to let it go.
You got to let it go. But you just touched on something I think is important, because we're often trained, like, we go through the academy and there's an expectation that we at least present to the public that we have all the answers and we know everything. And without a doubt, you need to listen to what we say because we're the authority on everything. And obviously that's not true, but that's encouraged in us to present that. And then there is an expectation as you go through call to call to call that you have an answer. And people look to you. And we talked about my neighbors. They come to my door asking for a question and they want an answer. You are a resource that they expect an answer from, and people expect direction. And then you become a supervisor. Now you got 4 other cops who are expected to have the answers, looking to you for the answer. And it's easy to get into some sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy of expecting that you are supposed to have all the answers, And so another thing I found is you're absolutely right. When you're going to make mistakes, it's totally acceptable. People expect it. What they expect you to do, though, is to own it.
Absolutely.
And if you go about making a mistake and then pretending it didn't happen, everyone's going to see right through that. and then your authenticity and your value is really going to decrease. But if you make a mistake and you own it, you raise your hand and say, here's what I did wrong, and you start with yourself, of course, first, in any of these situations, then you get a lot of leeway, and people breathe a sigh of relief and go, like you said, oh, he is human. Okay. And then it creates an environment where people can make mistakes. Now, failure or just being lackadaisical, that's different. But you need to create an environment where people can make a mistake and then feel like they can come to you. And the first way to do that is to own your own.
No, definitely. I remember there was a stop I did years ago, probably about 10 years ago, and this lady was just being a right pain, man. She would not go with the program, and she's out of her car, and I told her, ma'am, you need to get back in your car. You can't tell me what to do. And I said, and as soon as I said it, I'm like, this is not going to work out well for me. I said, ma'am, that's one of the fun things about my job. I absolutely can tell you what to do. Now go sit in your car. And the look on her face was like, oh, how dare you? And I thought, well, here comes a complaint. And I immediately said, ma'am, I'm sorry, that was unprofessional. Doesn't change the fact that I need you in your vehicle. And she did. And I went from that stop to the chief's office and like, I stepped on my Johnson. Here's what happened. Blah, blah, blah. And he's like, okay, don't do that again. Awesome. She came in to complain, but I had gotten in ahead of the bus and waved it down, and not a big deal. I didn't even take any paper for it. And I think the main reason that happened the way it did was because I immediately took action to rectify it, take responsibility, and said, I made a mistake. I'm not going to make this particular mistake again. I'll find new and exciting ways to make other mistakes.
Right.
I'm going to keep you on your toes, Chief. And he's like, dang it, I know you will. But I don't make the same mistake twice.
Right.
That's what you really have to be able to do is, like you said, own it and then don't do it again. Find something else to screw up. Yeah. There's plenty to screw up, believe me.
Oh, gosh, yes. I've made similar comments come out of my mouth and go, well, that's going to hurt.
Yep. But sometimes at the same time, sometimes you're like, it was worth it. So I'll suck that paper. That's fine. Yeah. I feel better now.
I once had a guy. I don't do a whole lot of traffic because, I work for a sheriff's department and I'm not in the motor unit. And so, but, because we have CHP handles most of our traffic in our area. But anyway, I did a car stop once back in the day. But you made me think of this. Guy's all over the road. He's cutting people off. He's just driving like a jerk and peeling out at the stop lights. And it's taking me a little bit to catch up to him. And I finally pull him over and I ask him for his receipt. And he looks confused. As a motor cop, you probably know where this is going. And so I ask him for his driver's license, proof of registration, his insurance, and his receipt. And he goes, okay, sure. Wait, what? What was the last one? I go, your receipt. And my receipt for what? Your receipt for the road. He kind of looks at me weird. I'm like, well, you're driving like you own it, so I'm assuming you have proof of purchase.
That is awesome. That is awesome. I once I was on a traffic stop once, and I'm off the bike, writing the ticket, and the lady just decides to backs up, hits my bike, knocks it over. And so I, of course, got to call the supervisor. He comes out, and I say, hey, Sarge, listen, I will absolutely sign a phase if you let me tell this lady what I think. And he was like, no, get on the bike and get out of here. I'm like, dang it. I had a litany of things I wanted to tell this lady. I ended up not, which is probably the better idea.
Probably the best for the best.
Yeah. And I think that was pre-blog, so I didn't even get the joy of writing about it and sharing it with the internets.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. We've all had plenty of those. Someone tells you something ridiculous, or you just know they're lying to you, and it's just you're having a rough day already, and it's easy to just let that one rip. And I've probably let more good ones let them go than I have held them back in my day, And then you finally get to a point in your career where you're like, yeah, I gotta stop doing that.
Yeah, I gotta dial that back. Discretion is definitely the better part of valor sometimes.
Yeah, and it's funny too to me how different agencies approach it, And it seems here in Southern California and interacting with other sheriff's agencies versus municipal agencies, that there's a big difference in what gets tolerated from a sheriff's department in terms of what gets tolerated from the public. I mean, what the public accepts as acceptable from a sheriff's department versus a municipal department. With the agencies that butt up right against me, it's like night and day. what they expect from their police department versus what they expect from their sheriff's department. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting because I'll get guys that come to because I work for a smaller area and versus bigger county areas, and people come to me for training. I'm like, listen, you're going to do things different with me than you are in county. In county, people have different expectations, but if you talk to somebody in this area the way you're going to talk to the people over in that area, you're going to get into a large amount of trouble. You really got to watch your P's and Q's where I'm at, whereas, other areas of the county, you can be like, hey, listen, blah, 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 and just let loose. And it's like, it's just, okay, whatever. That's the way we do business. Okay.
Yeah, it's funny. Another story I think of, we have a large, municipal jurisdiction in our area, and one day our gang cops are in the city. Again, we're county, but we can kind of go anywhere, and they're working in the city, and they were running a black Crown Vic, right? No markings on it or anything like that. It still screamed cop car, and
of course
most agencies had the black Crown Vic, but no markings to note that it was sheriff's versus the PD. And so these guys are at a light, and the way it was told to me, they're at a light, and this guy sees them, and he starts MFing them up and down, throwing them the middle finger, screaming the most horrific, nasty things at them in the middle of traffic. People are looking and waiting for the reaction, and they decide, okay, we're going to go talk to this guy because he clearly is, waving us down because he wants some attention.
Yeah, he needs assistance.
And so they throw the car off to the curb, and they hop out, and then he sees the tan and green of the sheriff's department, and he's expecting the blue of the local municipal department. And the guy apologizes, puts his hands up, and walks away and says, I'm sorry, and he just it's like, never mind.
Wrong agency. My bad.
Wrong agency. That's not to encourage anybody to do.
No, God, that's never a good idea.
It's just funny. And then, of course, I hear stories from LA County every once in a while that are just pretty darn funny with how LA operates versus some of the other municipalities there. Anyway, we are getting way off topic, but I always like telling stories, and I always like hearing stories.
Oh, definitely. So it's like being on the crossover show.
Yeah, right.
Woo! Right-hand turn.
Yeah, right. So bring it back a little bit. You're, WYE Radio. That's the new podcast.
Yep.
It covers all of the emergency disciplines and off-duty civilian stuff. And then we talked about, this is something I'm working on hard right now, but we both got we're very similar. We like beer. We're in California. Yeah. We both have the podcast and these side hustles going on, and you have a lot of, you're pretty squared away in how you approach things, and I think a lot of us have a side hustle, whatever you want to call it, off-duty job or something like that. What are some of the things you've done or you've used that have helped you not lose your freaking mind with everything that you've got going on? You write, you got the podcast, you got the blog.
Right.
What do you do?
I recently discovered a really cool journal. It's called the Best Self Journal.
Yes,
and
yeah.
Spoiler alert, I became an affiliate for them because I believe in their product so much. The first quarter of this year, I set 3 goals. One was to increase my affiliate income by $1,000 a month. The other was to get my brown belt in Kung Fu. And the third was to read 3 leadership books, because a quarter is 3 months. So 1 leadership book a month. Well, I got my brown belt within 5 weeks. I ended up averaging just over $1,500 a month in affiliate income. Mm-hmm. And I read like 5 leadership books.
Fantastic.
And it all came down to this journal, and it's way beyond just a journal where I'm going to talk about rainbows and unicorns. It's not that kind of journal. Mm-hmm. It's a planner where you not only plan out your big 3 goals, but you break them down into actionable steps, and then they actually goes from a result goal to a progress goal, 3 different progress goals for each main goal, and then you break down actions for each progress goal. So every day I get up in the morning and I write out my day. This is what I'm going to do. This is what I want to accomplish. And by just taking those real small steps every single day, I crushed my goals. Mm-hmm. And this quarter, I'm still using the same tool, the Best Self Journal, and I started using color-coded ink, or colored ink rather. So like one of my goals is to complete the backyard renovation. So I use brown for that because I figured dirt. Okay, it's brown, sure. And then the affiliate one, I want to raise my affiliate income to $2,000 a month. And right now I'm sitting at $2,800. And I use green for that because, money. Mm-hmm. And then blue, for law enforcement, why not, to increase the downloads for What's Your Emergency podcast. Mm-hmm. And it's planning out each individual step every single day. And I start seeing these micro progressions and things. But when I turn around, a month from now, I'm going to look back at the end of April and most of May and be like, man, I got so much stuff done with really not a whole lot of effort because I was intentional with my time. Mm-hmm. And that's really what the Best Self Journal has helped me do, is be intentional. Because the cool thing about using the different colors is I can look back at my days at a glance or my weeks at a glance and just look at the colors and be like, man, I really hyper focused on the podcast for like 2 weeks. I need to double down on, I've ignored the backyard for 2 weeks. And it's getting into, nice weather. I want to be able to take advantage of my backyard. But if I'm not being intentional in getting those things done, that's where the colors come in, because I can just look at it and be like, oh, okay, now I know what I'm going to do this weekend is I'm going to, finish pulling weeds or whatever I'm going to do. Mm-hmm. And it's been incredibly helpful. I've been a fan of a guy named Hal Elrod for a long time. He wrote The Miracle Morning. Mm-hmm. Met him on Pat Flynn's podcast, The Smart Passive Income. I followed Pat Flynn for years. And when he has somebody on a show that kind of speaks into my life, I pay attention. And Hal talks about getting up intentionally early before you have to get up. So I work at 6 a.m. And where I live, it takes me 20 minutes to get to work. So I could literally roll out of bed at about 5:15, shower, shave, throw something down my throat, grab a cup of coffee, and I'm out the door. I get up at 4:10 every work day on purpose to spend an hour on myself. Mm-hmm. That puts me in a mindset of really being ahead of the game, because when I go to work, hey, I've already planned my day out. I've already done, meditation or journaling, or I read a devotional every morning. I spend time on things that bring me joy, that center me, that give me the ability to go out and do what I need to do work-wise, instead of the alarm goes off, time to hit the ground running and just go. Mm-hmm. It changed everything. And I've built on those little habits, atomic habits, like James Clear's book, Atomic Habits. He talks about these little changes. Mm-hmm. Tony Robbins talks about the concept of Kaizen, continued improvement, 1% better every day. You can do 1%. I'm not asking you to do 1,000 push-ups right now. I'm asking you to do 1, and then tomorrow do 2. Just 1% better every single day, and that has helped keep me really focused and balanced, happy at work, happy at home. Just being intentional with my time has made all the difference.
I think too, because I use the Best Self Journal as well, and I went back to it after using a couple different things and trying different things, and I found that when I was on night shift, the best self wasn't the best. Wasn't the best? That doesn't make sense. Wasn't as easy to use, but with being kind of regular hours right now, it's definitely the best journal I've found for staying consistent and putting those things on paper. And even if you don't have a side hustle like we're talking about here, and you just are going to work and you've got a family and you've got kids and you've got, little league practice or whatever, putting those things down and then filling in the gaps with the things that you need to accomplish, like the backyard, or like getting your budget squared away, or getting to the gym, or, meal prepping or eating better. Those things, they don't just come out of thin air, and they don't just get produced out of thin air. You really have to be intentional about them, and writing them down in a journal of some sort. Because anytime I'm consistent with a journal, I always get more stuff done. Absolutely. And always feel better. And the Hal Elrod book, Miracle Morning, that's a great book. And in my streaks where I'm good at getting up early and having time to myself, man, I kill those days.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, it's those are great things. You know, I'm curious. You mentioned meditation. Is it something consistent you do, or something you dabble in? And what do you use or do you just do it by yourself?
I was much more consistent a few years ago. In the mornings now, I've really been focusing on the best self and creating my day and looking back at my big goals and what can I do today. So it's not traditional meditation, but I think of meditation as focusing. You're focusing on something. And when I think of what I'm focusing on in the mornings, it's my time. I'm kind of meditating on my time. When I was doing traditional meditation, I love the 10% Happier app. I've read both of Dan Harris's books. I think he's awesome. I actually listened to one of them, and he reads his own book, and he's got such a great voice that listening to it was a pleasure.
He does.
Yeah, he really does. So I really liked the 10% Happier. I've done Headspace. I've also done Calm. Calm is really good for the kids. We do sleep stories, and they absolutely love it.
Yeah, we use it with our son too.
Oh, all my girls have been just really, really enjoyed it, and it helps them get to sleep faster.
Yeah, you know, the meditation thing, I think, because I've tried and I try and I just never stick with it. But the journaling, I get a lot of value out of, and I kind of came to the realization that there's certainly value in meditation. There's no argument there. But for me, getting that journal squared away and getting my day planned gives me much of that same return, and then because I'm all over the place and I'm scattered and I got a million thoughts going through my head at any time. When I plan that day and when I know what the day is going to look like, and there will be hiccups, but when I know what the day is going to look like, I am so much more calm because I know what's coming.
Yeah, one of the big things I've learned is being flexible. I can plan out my perfect day, and I've probably hit a perfect day since the beginning I started this January 21st. I probably hit a perfect day like twice from then to now. And when they happen, hey, they're awesome. But learning how to be flexible and understanding that life's going to happen, you're going to have to adjust some things. That was a key lesson for me. One of the things that I think it's really, really important to bring up, though, is all these things you're scheduling, they don't have to be tedious to-do lists.
Right.
I put, on my schedule today at 11 o'clock, I have a dobro lesson. I am intentional about something that brings me joy. Playing music brings me joy. So I plan in music practice to either play my banjo or play the dobro, and it chills me in a way that other things don't. But if I don't purposefully plan that time, it ain't going to get done.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And that's absolutely right. It's just one of those ustas that we go back to when we talked about Kevin Gilmartin, right? And if you're not intentional about planning those things and giving yourself some time and permission, you got to give yourself permission to do those things. They won't get done. And then all of a sudden you're the guy who used to play what is it? The resonator guitar, the dobro. Dobro.
Yeah. It's the one you play flat.
Oh, okay. All right. I got you.
Kind of similar to lap steel, but it looks like a regular guitar.
I got you. Okay. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So without giving yourself the time and the permission to do that, it becomes one of those ustas you used to do.
Yep.
Or it becomes a thing that you'll never do.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny you're talking about that because my goal for this year was to start learning how to play the drums, which my wife is super excited about.
Yeah. Wait, was that sarcasm?
But at least I want to start. I've always been fascinated by it, and
just buy some mutes. That's very important to buy some mutes.
Yeah, it's one of those things I just haven't been intentional about scheduling time for. I've scheduled time for other things, and look what happens. Here we are at the beginning of May, and have yet to accomplish that. So,
yeah,
giving yourself permission and scheduling that time. I'll put the link for Best Self Journal and all these other books we're talking about, Miracle Morning and 10% Happier. Those will go in the show notes for anyone who wants to dig into any of these more on.
If you want to add a benefit for the Best Self, of course, I am an ambassador for them. So it is an affiliate relationship. So if you use the coupon code Motorcop, you can get 15% off of your journal. I believe the journal is like $31.99. So you can save 15%. and they'll throw a couple bucks at the show.
All right, we're ambassadors too, actually.
Oh, are you?
But we're gonna go yours because I haven't announced mine yet. So what is it again for everybody?
The coupon code is simply Motorcop, all one word.
Easy enough. And what's next for WIE, the podcast?
We've got a slew of interviews. We're actually doing really well after going through Pat Flynn's Amped Up podcasting course. I took his Power Up podcasting course last year in preparation for launching WIE, and going through his kind of advanced course that you've taken as well. I'm starting to implement some of those strategies, and we actually have enough shows in the can after recording tomorrow that will be set through about mid-June, which is very unusual for us. Usually, Justin comes over and, what do you want to talk about? I don't know. Let's do something. But we're actually scheduling specific topics, specific guests, and every other week we do an Ask WIE where we'll get questions from our audience. They go to SpeakPipe or on our website, wieradio.com, and they can just click a little button, leave us a little note, and we can answer their question on the show. It can be about police, fire, EMS related stuff, or it can be like, hey, I know you guys talk about working out. What's your favorite workout strategy? And we can riff on that for 10, 15 minutes, and it's on to the next show. Yeah.
And so where can people find you, find information on the show, find you on social media, etc.?
If you just Google Motorcop, you will find me. It still blows my mind that I come up number one on the Google when you search the term Motorcop. But I'm going to be rebooting my website, themotorcopmindset.com. And, of course, you can find me over at wieradio.com. You can listen to What's Your Emergency on your chosen podcast host of choice.
I highly recommend, is it episode 2 with that fantastic guest of yours?
No, you were episode
3.
If you want to go with Mike the Cop,
no.
Episode 2.
He was
episode
okay.
2.
He was all right.
He was all
He's
right. Now you were number 3, and actually,
right.
Your episode is also on my YouTube channel as well. So if you go to YouTube and search the Motorcop Mindset, you can see your glorious visage.
my visage is showing.
Your visage is showing. Yeah, I had to have a special tag on that episode.
Jason, thanks for hanging out. WIE Radio, that's the new podcast. Everyone, check it out. Jason is good people's, as we say, good human being, and on a mission to help other law enforcement officers get better and navigate this career just like we are here at the Squadron. So, Jason, thanks for hanging out today.
Hey, it's been a pleasure, man. Thanks for having me back on. I appreciate it.
All right, there's Jason Hoschouer of both the Motorcop Mindset blog and also the What's Your Emergency podcast. Thanks, Jason, for coming on. When we talk about badges, our beliefs, actions, discipline, goals, emotions, and service, and listening to this episode today and being part of it, the service part of that strikes me as being very at the forefront. And serving others by being a good leader, by being a good sergeant, by being the kind of person that people want to work for. And that doesn't stop, of course, when you go from stripes to bars. And really pursuing the idea of serving those who serve you. Also that our actions are really what it all comes down to. We can have if our beliefs and actions are in alignment, it's going to show. But if we think one way and act another, we're not being genuine. So how do we align our beliefs and our actions together all the way down that list? And Jason's certainly someone who's walking the walk when it comes to that. If you like what you heard today, please support the show by sharing this episode with somebody you care about or you think that needs to hear it. You can go to thesquadron.net and just share this episode directly from the website. And here's a couple ways that you can help support the show. I often get asked how a listener can help support the show, above and beyond just leaving a review on the podcast player of your choice. We do have sponsors on occasion, but it costs a good deal of money to keep the show up and running and to maintain equipment and some travel, etc., etc. Well, so there's several ways that you can help. They're all known as affiliate relationships, so everything I mentioned here, we get a percentage of whatever it is you spend. The best, fastest, and easiest one is to Amazon. Everybody shops on Amazon. I got my Prime account. But if you shop on Amazon, go first to our website, thesquadron.net/Amazon, and use the link there to get to Amazon. When you do that, Amazon tracks that you came to their website through us, And then we get a portion of whatever you spend, a small percentage. It doesn't have to be on cop stuff. It can be on anything, bed mattresses to dish detergent to blue jeans, whatever. And they give us a consideration in response for that. If you do that every time you shop on Amazon, that will really help support the show. There's also a couple other ways that you can help. Onnit, for one, ONNIT.com. They are a health and fitness online store, a juggernaut dedicated to what they call total human optimization. I use their Alpha Brain nootropics a lot. I got some of their kettlebells. They've got a great wide variety of stuff. If you listen to Joe Rogan or Andy Stumpf or any of those guys, you hear them talk about Onnit. Well, you can save 10% using the code SQUADROOM when you go to onnit.com to buy any of their supplements or anything like that. Use that coupon code SQUADROOM or go to onnit.com/squadroom. That's ONNIT.com/squadroom. And you get 10% off of any Onnit product that you purchase. And like I said, that is also an affiliate relationship with us. They give us a little consideration for the fact that you bought through us. Also, great people over at Hardhead Veterans, the tactical helmets. A lot of people are buying Hardhead Veterans these days. My department is quickly catching on to how the high quality of the helmet that they've made and the price that they sell them at. I've had one for several years, probably about 18 months now, and I absolutely love it. And if you use the coupon code SQUADROOM, you get $20 off of your helmet from hardheadveterans.com. You could also get a free Audible trial and a free ebook through audibletrial.com/thesquadroom. Sign up through that. Just using an email address, you get a free online book or a free ebook and a free month trial. Ebooks are a great way to pass, or Audible books are a great way to pass night shifts or commutes or anything like that, assuming you've cut up on the Squad Room podcasts. Ranger Up Clothing, that's another one. Great supporters of the show, another affiliate relationship. Use the coupon code THESQUADROOM for 10% off your order of anything at Ranger Up. Those are simple, fast ways that you can help support the show that help literally keep the lights on and the microphone warm for the next episodes. All right, I also want to thank the sponsor for this episode, ProForce. Check them out at proforceonline.com. If you're in Southern California, go by the store, and you get 20% off a Streamlight TLR1 pistol light by giving them the password, the Squad Room. And if you're into agency sales or that's part of your gig, check them out there as well, proforceonline.com. They can hook you up with a sales rep. We'll get you a great quote. All right, until next time, please take care of each other and stay safe.